Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S66018 Arthur and the Scare Your Pants Off Club, Chapter 6. Later that afternoon, Arthur, Francine, Sue Ellen, and Buster walked out of the Sugar Bowl, eating ice cream cone. Collecting signatures is hard work, said Buster. Do you think we have enough names? Asked Francine. Arthur licked the drips around his cone. I think so. There are pages and pages. I just hope Paws will listen to us. Francine looked at her watch. I wonder where the brain is. He was supposed to meet us at 5. Look, said Buster. Here comes Muffy. Where has she been anyway? Said Francine. We could have used her help today. Muffy was wearing a big smile. Great news, everyone, she announced. My parents are having a big party tomorrow. At Wonderworld, she paused, and I can invite anyone I want. Wow, said Arthur. Wonderworld was the best carnival and theme park around. Going there for free would be a real treat. That's terrific, said Sue Ellen. Count me in. Francine noticed Muffy eyeing her cone. Want a league? She asked. She held out the cone. Muffy backed away. No thanks. My mom won't let me. Too much fat and sugar. She shut her eyes. Take it away, please. At that moment, the brain came around the corner. He was clutching a newspaper in one hand. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Wait till you hear what I just... He stopped suddenly. Oh, hello, Muffy. Muffy looked at the sidewalk. What did you find out? Francine asked. The brain glanced in Muffy's direction. Listen to this. There is a whole article in today's paper about the book ban and an interview with the people behind it. I'll skip to the important part. He started reading from the newspaper. Kids don't know how harm these books do, said the Millicent Crosswire. My poor daughter Muffy read just one, and it gave me her awful nightmares. Everyone looked at Muffy. She continued to study the cracks in the sidewalk. The brain read some more. We started Paws to save other kids, added the Millicent's husband, Ed. We're having a big rally for concerned parents at the library tomorrow. Afterward, all our supporters, young and old, can join us for a celebration at Wonderworld. Buster was shocked. Muffy, your mom and dad started Paws? Muffy looked up. Yes, she said. But why? Asked Francine. Muffy bit her lip. Let me see that, Arthur said to the brain. The brain gave him the newspaper. Arthur read through the interview. This isn't just any old Wonderworld party, he said. Is it, Muffy? It's only for people who support Paws. Muffy shrugged. Well, if you want to get technical, oh no, said Buster. We have to get our books back. Muffy said, don't you understand? Muffy hesitated. Then she took a deep breath and folded her arms. You just have to decide which means more to you. Wonderworld or a bunch of silly books. The choice is yours. Chapter 7. I don't know what's so complicated, said DW. She put out her hand as though she were balancing things in a scale. Some creepy books here, free Wonderworld here. She lowered her Wonderworld hand to her knees, as though it was holding something heavy. The other hand shut up, no contact. She and Arthur were sitting in the living room. Arthur had told her about the problem with Muffy and her parents. It's not that simple, said Arthur. DW laughed. It is to me. You know how great Wonderworld is? They have the best roller coaster. People throw up and everything. What do you think, Kate? The baby sister was watching from her playpen. Her hands were going up and down. See, Arthur? Even Kate knows the right thing to do, and she's just a baby. The right thing to do about what? Asked Mrs. Reed, taking a break from her work. Arthur gets to go to Wonderworld for free, said DW. Really? Said Mrs. Reed. How did that come about? Arthur told her. I see, said his mother. Well, Arthur, for someone going to Wonderworld, you don't look very happy. Arthur sighed. As I was trying to tell DW, it's not that simple. I don't want to miss Muffy's party, but I don't want to lose my favorite books either. And it's not really right to go if I don't support. Pause. Mrs. Reed nodded. It's a difficult situation, Arthur. It's like a balance sheet. There are pluses and minuses. When you add everything up, you have to do what you think is right, even if it means making a sacrifice. Arthur wandered outside to think some more. Why did sticking up for what you believe in have to be so difficult? I wish I knew what everyone else was thinking, Arthur muttered. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, said his father from the garage. My life is an open book, a cookbook, that is. Mr. Reed was busy with a huge catering job, but right now he was looking through boxes. I wish there was a book where I could look up the answers to hard questions, Arthur said. He explained the situation to his father. That'd be a good book to have, his father agreed. Probably a bestseller. He opened the box. Here is what I was looking for. He pulled out a clown costume, just what I need for this afternoon's children's hospital benefit. He began putting the costume on. What if I'm the only one who decides to protest? Pause. What if all my friends decide to go to Wonderworld instead? Mr. Reed adjusted his bald wig. I can't be afraid to look foolish for something you believe in. Give me that rubber nose, please. Arthur handed it to him. Then he sat down to think. Blat. Arthur jumped up. Oh, thanks. I wondered where that whoopee cushion was. Mr. Reed put it in his pocket. He looked at his watch. I've got to be going. Remember one thing, Arthur. I know you want to do what your friends are doing, but look at me. Arthur stared at his father in his clown suit. Sometimes clowns work as a team. His father shook hands with a bunch of imaginary clowns around him. Sometimes they stand under the spotlight all by themselves. He made a little bow. Arthur sighed. Sometimes clowns look sad, the way he felt right now. Chapter 8. At the library the next morning, Crosswires stood at the top of the steps. Muffy kept ducking behind her parents, but they kept pulling her out in front of them. A crowd of kids and parents was gathered around them. Mr. Crosswire spoke into a portable microphone. Thank you all for coming. I'm Ed Crosswire of Crosswire Motors. Corner of Park and Lakewood. Open most night till 10. But I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it to save our kids. His words were met by cheers and polite applause. Off to the side, Arthur stood with his mother. He was holding up a sign that said, "Keep your paws off our book." Nobody seemed to be paying attention. I don't see anyone, said Arthur. I guess Wonderworld wins. Don't be too sure, said Mrs. Reed. There is still time. This is our little girl, Ed Crosswire continued. He held up Muffy's hand. We started Paws because of her, but we care about all of you as well. At that moment, Buster, Francine, the Brain, and Sue Ellen came around the corner. They were holding signs over their heads. Obey the laws, not pause. Close the book on pause. Yeah, here, said Arthur. I was beginning to wonder. Sorry we're late, said the Brain. We stopped for more signatures. He held out the petition sheet. There were now dozens and dozens of names. So who's going to give these to Mr. Crosswire? Buster asked. You do it, said the Brain. Not me. You do it. Who? Said Sue Ellen. Not you, said Francine. How about Arthur? Yeah, good idea. Well, Arthur, said the Brain. Arthur took a deep breath. All right, he said, I'll do it. Holding the petitions under one arm, he worked his way through the crowd. No Ferris wheel, no snow cones, no roller coaster. Excuse me, coming through. No cold cotton candy, no bumper cars, no haunted house at the top of the steps. Arthur stopped in front of Mr. Crosswire. He would be sorry to miss all those great things at Wonderworld, but this was more important. If we don't take a stand now, we will have failed in our trust. We must. Excuse me, please. Mr. Crosswire, said Arthur. We need to talk. Not now, Arthur. I'm on a roll. That's just it, Mr. Crosswire. You're rolling right over our rights. It's not fair. Speaking for the kids, we really want our books back. We've got the signatures of support. That's nice, Arthur. I admire your spirit, but believe me, this is for your own good. These books are trouble with a capital T. Have you read them? Asked the voice from the crowd. Arthur turned around. That voice was familiar. Surprisingly, it was familiar to Ed Crosswire too. He looked out over the crowd. He seemed a little confused. Arthur wondered what would happen next. Who is that? Asked Ed Crosswire. The rest of the crowd was silent. Answer the question, said the voice. Have you read the books? Have you read the books you are condemning? The crowd pulled back to reveal the speaker. Arthur recognized her. She was the woman he had spoken with in the park. Mr. Crosswire cleared his throat. I'm proud to say that I wouldn't read these books if you pay me. The woman sighed. I'm not surprised, she said. Mr. Crosswire looked startled. Why, I know you. You are Miss McWhird, my grade school English teacher. Yes, I am, Edward. She walked up the step. I'm glad to see your memory hasn't failed you, even if your common sense has. Miss McWhird, I assure you, I have every bit as much common sense as I ever did. She stood beside him. That may be true, she admitted. I see you haven't changed. You never were much of a reader. Can you appreciate how hard a writer works to create stories kids will like to read? Each story is like a seed, Edward. If a child reads one, the seed may grow into the desire to read another. That's something every writer hopes for. Mr. Crosswire crossed his arms. Oh, really, Miss McWhird? You're certainly a fine teacher, but what makes you such an expert about what writers hope for? Well, I'm a writer myself. Oh, I'm sure we're all delighted to hear that. Mr. Crosswire hesitated. Anything we know? Miss McWhird straightened Mr. Crosswire's jacket and flicked some lint from his shoulder. Nothing you have read, Edward, considering your common sense and all, but since you have asked, I am the author of the Scare Your Pants Off Club books. You? Said Mr. Crosswire, turning pale. He had a sudden vision of Miss McWhird walking him down to the principal's office. You, said Arthur. Her? Francine, Buster, Sue Ellen, and the Brain sat together. The woman nodded. E.A. DePaul is my pen name. Murphy nearly exploded with excitement. Miss DePaul, I'm your #1 fan. I have all your books. Could I have your... Her parents glared at her. Oops. She clasped her hand across her mouth as her parents surrounded her. Parents surrounded her. You read them all? Said the father. And just when did you do that? Asked the mother. Mary Alice Crosswire. You got some fancy explaining to do. Uh-oh, said Muffy. If you read all of these books, said Mrs. Crosswire, then obviously it wasn't one of them that gave you the nightmare. What was it? Well, Muffy hated it when her mother sounded like a detective. Just a minute here, said Mr. Crosswire. He stared at Muffy. Now I know who ate my quart of the Hassan, the Pfeffer ice cream. And then was afraid to admit it, said her mother. Mary Alice, you know eating like that gives you bad dreams. We're very disappointed in you, said her father. And I'm disappointed in you too, Muffy's mother said to her husband. What were you doing with a quart of that ice cream anyway? Well, Arthur almost smiled. Muffy and her father were both standing with their heads hanging low. They looked very much alike. Miss McWhird cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt a promising family squabble, but we've still got some business to settle. Edward, maybe you can take your foot out of your mouth long enough to listen to one of my stories. That way you can make an informed decision about who should be reading them. Oh yes, excellent idea. At this particular moment, anything was better than facing his wife. Chapter 10. And since that night, nobody has dared to steal anything from the haunted hamburger stand again. Miss McWhird put down her book. The crowd clapped and cheered. Among the loudest fans was Ed Crosswire. Well, Daddy, Murphy asked, he sighed. I guess I shouldn't have tried to stop you kids from reading books without knowing the whole story myself. Maybe, said Miss McWhird. You have changed some after all, Edward. So can we have our books back, Mr. Crosswire? Arthur asked. I will disband pause on one condition, said Mr. Crosswire. Everyone fell silent. That condition is, said Murphy, that Miss McWhird will read us another story. Mr. Crosswire looked at her. Please. Yes, another one, all right. Miss McWhird smiled, something she didn't do very often. She cracked open another book. No one in the village knew why the old man lived all alone deep in the dark woods. Only the animals of the forest knew his secret. Arthur sat back and closed his eyes as a familiar chill crept up his spine. The end.